texts. This is part of a larger goal of President Xi Jinping. He recently said, quote, that we will insist on the Sinization of Chinese religions and provide active guidance for religion and socialism to coexist. We go now to Jeff Kloa, Chief Curatorial Officer for the Museum of the Bible. Jeff, great to have you back on. We mentioned China altering the text of the Bible. Why is this happening, and what do we know about President Xi's long-term plan for religion in that country? Can you provide, some context into that?
This is the latest example in a long line in the history of the Bible of seeking to bend Scripture and its teaching to political or personal agendas. And China has a long history of limiting religious freedom, of trying to control what churches teach and don't teach, where they gather, who is able to gather. And this effort goes back to 2017, some party guidance that was provided, and there's been further clarification now. And it's not entirely clear if it's an effort to completely rewrite the Bible or if it's to provide new interpretations and annotations to Scripture. In either case, whichever direction it goes, anytime the government inserts itself into the teaching of the Scripture, negative repercussions happen for the church and for Christianity.
Jeff, can you give us maybe some specific examples of the changes that President Xi and China's Communist Party have made to the Bible and other sacred texts?
We don't have a translation yet. It seems to be a 10-year project that they're launching. And again, it might be reinterpretations, it might be annotations, it might be changing the text. So it's interesting that it's coming out now, and it's important to understand what's happening now. We do see other examples, though. There's been examples of textbooks being edited to change stories. There's an example of the woman caught in adultery in the Gospel of John being changed, where Jesus is made a lower status and actually becomes the person who stones the woman. There's examples of rewriting the Ten Commandments in some provinces of China. So there's not a good history. Anytime the Chinese government or any government inserts itself into the scriptural agenda, bad things result.
Yeah, it seems very dangerous right there. And I'm curious, if China officially recognizes, say, Catholicism and Protestantism, then why would it want to change foundational texts? I mean, what's going on here? Do you know?
Yeah. Well, the Bible is a very authoritative book. It's regarded as authoritative. It has for centuries. And so any government, especially an authoritarian government, does not like alternative authorities. So it's an effort to diminish that authority, to replace that authority, and control what people think and believe. And again, dangerous for the church, dangerous for Christianity.
Jeff, are there any efforts in place to stop what is happening, if it can be stopped at all, or kind of reverse what the CCP is doing?
Yeah. I'm not aware of any, but I think a couple things we should keep in mind. First, there are already millions of Bibles in China, going back to 19th century translations and even back into the 16th century. So the Bible's been in China for centuries and centuries, and I don't know of any efforts to gather up all the Bibles and destroy them. So we don't have any reports of that. So, there will be copies that are accurate that people can still refer to, hopefully. But I think we should also remember that, the Bible itself promises that God will sustain his word. We read in the prophet Jeremiah in the New Covenant that he will write it on our hearts, right? Put it in our minds. And so I think we don't need to fear governments. Governments have been trying to